Hi, I'm Danny and these are my Diecast Disasters. In this video I'm going to be restoring and customizing this Matchbox 1983 Corvette. These were produced in Macau from 1983 until 1987. This is the earlier 83 version, and the later one had a red top section to the body there. Ironically, I don't believe that Chevrolet even released a Corvette in 1983. So let's get it off the turntable and have a closer look. It's all there. Oh, those wheels look terrible on it. It's pretty heavily worn, a lot of the paint missing there. I quite like these three-part bodies that Matchbox made around this time, as you get the pinstripe for free. Unfortunately, there's a bit of a crack in the windscreen here. I don't have a replacement, but hopefully it won't be that noticeable. It's down pretty low. We'll crack on and get it taken apart. There's two posts to drill out. I'll just pop this base off here and then the rest of it will come apart easily. Nice metal suspension plate in there. There we go. Now I can use some poly stripper to remove the paint from those castings there. Here they are with the paint stripped off them. Now I'll just take this top part here and drill and tap the rivet posts. Now I'll give both the castings a clean up with the wire brush on my rotary tool. So we'll get rid of the oxidation there and any scraps of paint that are left on them. I thought this casting was a little bit rough here and there, so I'll just give it a quick sand with some 1200 grit sandpaper. Once I was happy with them, I gave them a wash and then they were painted with white primer. So I've decided I'm going to paint my Corvette a nice red colour. Got a nice deep red here. Just mix a little bit of thinner into it. And then I gave both the castings a couple of coats. And here they are after the red paint. Next I just added some small details. There wasn't much to do, just the indicators and the badges pretty much. And then they were given a coat of gloss. So we'll move on to the plastic parts. They were pretty grubby, so I started out by giving them a wash in some hot soapy water. Then I painted the interior black. Again, there wasn't much to detail on it. I just did the rear lights there. And here is the base section. Normally I'd paint this black, but I thought it was looking pretty clean. So I just applied some silver weathering powder straight onto this. It ended up looking okay. I think maybe the powder doesn't apply to the smooth plastic as well as it does to a painted surface, but it still looks fine. And it was given a coat of satin varnish to fix it there. Here's our windscreen. It's actually a pretty delicate piece. See the crack in it there at the base. It's pretty scuffed, so I'll carefully give it a sand with some 1200 grit sandpaper to remove as much of the scratches, etc. that I can. And then I give it a polish. And I finished it with a dunk in some self-shining floor polish. And finally, we'll have a look at these horrible old wheels. I really don't like those. So I'm going to be replacing them with some nice aftermarket ones. And here are all the refurbished, repainted parts of our Corvette ready to go back together. I'll start by putting the bulk of the car together. Here's the windscreen and the interior and the base of the body there. Now I'll put the wheels on the axles. These are easy ones, they just press onto the axles there. Plonk them in place. And then the base goes on. And I screw that in with a couple of button head screws. So that's our Corvette done, but just before we take a look at the finished car, I'm going to make a cool little diorama base to display it on. I figured I'd do a kind of derelict city scene. I'm going to start with this lump of foam here. I want it to look like a big cracked slab of concrete, so I'm just going to break some pieces off the edge of it here. There we go, that's looking pretty much how I wanted it to look. Next I'll put some expansion joints in it and a few cracks. Just going to use a ruler here to put the joints in, and I'm just marking them in with a pencil. Next I mark in some cracks. There we go, some nice cracks and chips out of the concrete there. Next I want to make a couple of brick walls for my car to be in front of. Again, I'm going to take a thin piece of foam I've cut here, and I'm going to use the back of this craft knife to mark some lines into it. And then I use this little carving tool here to mark in my bricks. There's all my bricks marked in. I'll just do the tops of them here. And next I'm going to cut a few bricks out so it looks all crumbled and broken. There, that's looking pretty cool. I've got another one I've made here. Next I use some hot glue to stick them onto the base there. That's looking quite good. Now I can start painting it. I started with a dark grey undercoat, you can see it on the back there, and then I lightly sprayed over the top with a lighter grey. Next I painted the bricks. I'm using a really reddy brown here. I also painted in a few random bricks in a lighter brown shade. Here's our brick wall once it's dried. Now I'm going to add some mortar. For this I'm going to use some joint compound. Just going to rub it into all of the gaps between the bricks here. And then I'm going to rub off as much from the surface as I can. I'll also use this tool here to remove any other thick areas. Once my mortar had all dried well, I gave the whole thing quite a heavy black wash. And then I added some white dry brushing. Now I want some painted signs on my brick wall, so I've printed out some old signs here. There's a beer one and Coca-Cola. I also did some movie posters, but I decided not to use them after all. This is just A4 paper. To apply them to my wall, I'm going to start by sanding off the back of the paper. I'm going to carefully sand this down as thin as I can. Doesn't matter if you get the odd little rip and hole in it, because it's just going to look good. There you can see I'm sanding it down until it's basically see-through. And once it's about as thin as I wanted it, I'm going to keep sanding and make a few little holes here and there in it, especially around the edges. Just remember to be a bit gentle because you don't actually want to rip it. Once they were sanded down enough, I applied them to the brick walls using some watered down PVA here. I'll just paint on a little bit to start, and then I'll place my sign where I want it to be. Also Mark Zuckerberg selling me a beer. And once it's in place, I apply some more of the watered down glue, and I'm going to make sure it's really soaked into the paper there and the paper's gone all soft, and I'm going to work it into the texture on the wall there. And just the same with the Coca-Cola sign here. And here they are after drying. Now I'm going to add a little bit more weathering with some pastels. And there we go, that's our base pretty much finished and ready to photograph our Corvette on. So now we can head back and take a look at our finished car, but just before we do that, we better take a look back and be reminded of what we started with. Our worn out old 1983 Matchbox Corvette with its scruffy old chipped paint job, those horrible ugly wheels, and its scuffed old windscreen. A bit of a die-cast disaster in need of a makeover. And here it is, our finished Matchbox 1983 Corvette, repainted in a nice deep red. It's also been detailed. It's had the windscreen cleaned up and polished, And to finish it off, it's got a nice new set of wheels. Hopefully you think it's looking a bit better. You let me know what you think in the comments down below. Before I go, I'll welcome all of my new subscribers, say a big thanks to everyone for the great comments and likes on my videos, and as always, an extra special thanks to my awesome Patreon supporters. If you'd like to join them supporting the channel and help me keep making videos like this for you to watch, you can check out my Patreon page. There'll be a link in the description down below. I really hope you enjoyed watching this video. Hopefully it inspires you to try making your own little base for your Hot Wheels customs. If you did enjoy watching it, remember to subscribe and hit the bell, give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends.